Good morning, everyone. So, having worked in farm development and farm development programs for the past number of years, I found myself getting increasingly frustrated with the varying levels of farmer engagement. The top 30 to 40% of farmers are consistently getting involved in these programs, whereas the next 30 to 40% are not. Adult learning is a concept that many of you are very familiar with. But in today's farm programs, it is one that hasn't taken centre stage. Adult learning is something that really needs to be involved in terms of causing change on farms and in causing behaviour change and practice adoption. In practice adoption. So I suppose in my travels, what I set out to do really was to identify how I'm going to change this. How can I bring back some of this information that I see around the world to adapt to our own circumstances? And travelling to the US, the UK, New Zealand and parts of Asia, I was able to bring back some of that information to answer some of my key questions. And my overall objective with this study was to innovatively disrupt the norms of farm development programmes by focusing on evaluation, adult learning and communication to improve adoption practice. So what I'm going to talk to you today about are three key areas: measuring the quality of these programmes, examining the methods of adult learning, and identifying innovative ways of engaging people in learning. So in true adult learning style, I'm going to ask everybody to please stand up for a moment. I want you to take a good look around the room, get a good full 360 view around the place. And can I ask you to think about a question? Can you tell me, is this conference very effective or is it having an impact? You don't have to answer, but I just want you to think about this and consider the challenge that you might experience in identifying this. Okay, you can take a seat. Thank you. Automatically, our brain starts to look at maybe empty chairs or how many people are in the room. And what I'm trying to do is change this type of attack on measuring quality and overall how we look at learning. So with this in mind, my investigative journey started, as I see it, with two simple options. The first of which, looking at, we continue with what we're doing. We have the approach where what I often hear is if they haven't caught on now, they never will. We're losing an opportunity to bring people with us in order to improve sustainability of farming, of farms and of rural communities. An alternative option which I'm going to suggest is that we challenge ourselves to do better, that we look at how we approach adult learning, communication and engaging people, and in that way have potentially room to improve sustainability of farms and hence rural areas. So across the educational spectrum, you have a lot of people who are very frustrated, including the practitioners, students and teachers, with how success is measured in learning. We often hear about the hard data all the time that's been brought back to us to show performance is working or not. So as you all know, there's a lot of hard data that's been used to measure performance in our own industry here in Ireland. An example of which would be there's around 5,000 dairy farmers involved in discussion groups. That's out of 18,000 farmers, and there's about 1,200 people doing profit monitors, less than 20% measuring grass. Okay, so a lot of data, but what is it actually telling us? How can we tell the quality of our programs of communication by quoting these kind of statistics? If we keep relying on this information, how can we actually improve how we engage? How can we improve communication and learning out on the ground? The sooner that we start using elements of measurement to do with quality, like the amount of discussion that takes place, the level of understanding and what action was taken, the sooner we can actually work on improving some of these programs. More recently, we see the likes of Dairy NZ, the New Zealand dairy industry advisory and research body, coming under increasing pressure. We have milk prices which have dropped in the last number of years, and farmers are asking, we're paying a dairy levy to you, what are we getting back for it? and asking them what's the impact. So Dairy NZ have started a new approach where they're trying to measure the impact that they have and also how do they approach adult learning without just counting bums on seats at events. So understanding this concept of adult learning and decision making, and that it's a process that involves networking, it involves negotiating, and involves interactive discussion in order to learn, is very important to this. There are two main areas that in how we see learning at the moment in Ireland: formal and non-formal. Formal learning really is the classroom or lecture style, similar to what I'm doing to you today. And we often see it in the likes of Green Cert, ICOS, and many institutional bodies across the country. Non-formal is more a farmer-directed approach to groups, through seminars, and as hands-on experience is causing active learning as opposed to just hearing it being told to somebody. The decision-making process of farmers needs to intertwine all of this, and as you can see here in my diagram, I have the farmer at the centre, but there are a lot of different people that influence the decisions all around them every day, including their own intimates, family, acquaintances, maybe other farmers, as well as paid experts. So even for one decision, these people can be interacted with several times, and depending on that decision, interacted with in different ways. In New Zealand and throughout Ireland, there has actually been a lot of studies looking into this and looking into who are the role models or the key influencers and opinion leaders in the different areas. And there's a bit of a surprise because they're not always the people that we think, the high performers. They're the ones who will influence, everybody else will follow what they do. They're often people who are under the radar but are seen as credible and sound in other farmers' eyes, and therefore are influencing their decisions as a result. So this whole process of learning and how decision making takes place is vastly different to the term that we hear nearly on a daily basis, and I'm sure we'll probably hear a few more times today: knowledge transfer. The term knowledge transfer basically explains a very linear approach where technology is developed through research, it's brought down through advisory and been brought into the farmer's hands. This is not exactly lining up with what we've learned around how people learn. One image it always reminds me of is Oliver Twist with his empty bowl handed out saying, "Please, sir, may I have some more?" A more accurate description would be maybe the sharing of knowledge, where the farmer is centre. The power is in the farmer's hands because they are the end users and they're involved in the process, and acknowledging that the power is within the power and the knowledge is within the farmers themselves. Encouraging this kind of ownership and empowerment is more of a knowledge pull approach, where you have people who are demanding information, who want to know, who want to improve because it's been generated in their circles and around them. The knowledge push approach is the one that we're really sitting in at the moment, where we have a more traditional sense, largely stemmed from Rogers' diffusion of innovation, where you have this bell curve with laggards on one end and early adopters on the other end. But this doesn't take account of confidence levels, of skill level, of communication abilities, or even of people's networks that are around them. An excellent example of knowledge pull would be how a small group of women found the need to improve and upskill themselves. And they attended the Global Women in Agriculture Conference a number of years ago. Today, they have a membership in a network of over 10,000 women all across New Zealand, where they are supporting and running this organisation themselves in order to upskill and develop themselves. They've taken ownership for their learning. So in order to not lose these people, to bring people with us and take the opportunity to improve the sustainability of farms and of rural communities, my suggestion for future programmes are that they contain a couple of key components. One, that they involve stakeholders in the design, in the whole process, because the end users are not just passive receivers of information, they are directly involved and relevant to the process. Acknowledging that people learn differently. providing different channels of where people can learn and gather information, but also acknowledging the power in the communicators or facilitators that we have, because we have an awful lot of very good people out on the ground at the moment. Evaluating performance. There's a great saying out there that Matt Ryan would always talk about: if you cannot manage without measuring. Okay, we are not measuring, we're counting information. How can we manage this if we don't change how we look at our programs and evaluate success? But most importantly, I think being flexible and having an ability to change. So gathering this information, being open-minded to social, I suppose the softer sciences, to social science and how people learn is critical to this, and adapting to it. So the term that I started with, innovative disruption, is a term that I suppose is loosely based on a new idea that comes in and challenges the thoughts challenges the established thoughts, okay? So it's something that really is not disruption in a negative way, but more disruption in a positive way. Some of the positive disruptions that I'm going to recommend is to first of all ban the term knowledge transfer. It's belittling to a lot of very capable people and not acknowledging the knowledge that is within our sector. Secondly, to focus on adult learning in training and in education. We're a very technical and data-focused industry, but communicating this kind of information seems to be our weakest point at the moment. So how do we challenge this? Only by integrating it into our university courses, college courses, as well as helping and supporting the new facilitators that are on the ground. To identify those good people that we do have on the ground who are very capable of communicating and facilitating, and putting them to the fore and playing to their strengths, not tying them to desk work at key times of the year. And finally, involving farmers more. We see the power that is in farmers in terms of leadership, as well as getting involved in networks and supporting each other. And I think this is critical to the development of our future programmes, as well as the future of our industry. So I'd like to say thank you very much to you all for listening to me this morning. Thank you also to Arrivo Co-op, to my fellow scholars and my family, friends and my mentors, particularly Mary Webb, who's here today. My report is available on nuffield.ie, and I'd also just like to say a massive thank you to Nuffield for this opportunity, and to my sponsors as well. Thank you.